My name is Ed Fitzgerald, and I want to welcome you to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us stories about their lives. Our guest today is Kerisa Fitzgerald, a farmer, and also my daughter-in-law. Welcome, Kerisa.
Thank you, Ed.
Leading our conversation today is Mary Gentleman Kaplan. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Ed. Thank you. And good morning, Kerisa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Mary. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. This is so appropriate. We have spring here. It's getting a little bit warmer. There's a wonderful volunteer decorating a tree here at the Pleasant View Center with spring Easter decorations, and it's like a breath of fresh air. We're going to talk about the land and farming and healthy vegetables, but you're a local girl, Kerisa. You grew up in East Longmeadow?
I grew up in Springfield.
In Springfield?
In 16 acres.
But you have an East Longmeadow connection for your youth. Do you not? Didn't you spend some time here?
I did, yes.
And tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yes, I took horseback riding lessons at BJ Stables, which is actually now the site of Crow River Farm, my property and farm. When I was probably 10 or 12, I started taking horseback riding lessons to fulfill my obsession with horses. So I lived in 16 acres. I started by getting driven over for my lessons. And then into my high school years, I started coming to BJ Stables just because I loved it there. And I loved to volunteer there. And I became very close to Betty Joseph, the proprietor of BJ Stables. She was just a fantastic woman and lifelong resident, I think, of East Longmeadow herself. And I would muck stalls and, pet the horses and groom them and meet a ton of people that were connected to Betty. She had a great way of helping people who either loved horses or just needed a little retreat from their life. She was just a wonderful person who reached out to others and helped them. And so I just loved being around that. And to me, East Longmeadow was a totally different world than 16 acres. It was like the country.
And a huge part of your life.
It was.
That you really took to.
That's right. Yes, I did. I ended up doing my senior thesis in college about BJ Stables. So I do have a long connection to that piece of land.
Now, were you an agricultural
student?
Vet
No.
tech major?
Not at all.
What was your college preparation?
I thought I was going to be a creative writer and write fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Emerson College. I was in the city in Boston studying communication.
Different.
Yeah. And then partway through my college education, I realized I really felt very strongly about being connected to nature. And I wanted to get more into environmental work. So I had this long kind of convoluted history of different environmental jobs, doing nonprofit work, worked for the city of Springfield, doing environmental programming there for a little while. And at some point felt like I needed to get back outside, and I volunteered. No, I started a job on a farm in Eastern Massachusetts, and I got hooked in my early 20s. And the rest is, farming from here on in.
Absolutely. And it's a science. It's not really just dropping a seed in the ground and doing a rain dance.
Yes. And I did not go to school for the science of it. So I was lucky enough to apprentice. They have a really great apprenticeship program called Craft out in Eastern Mass. They actually have one out here too, different one. And the young people who are just learning, they really try to educate them in all aspects of farming. So just from the repetitive nature of farming, getting involved in the seasonal aspect, the seeding in the spring, the planting out, the fertilizing, the harvesting, you start to learn those steps. And in terms of the science, and that is an endless learning opportunity. I'm still learning more and more about how plants work, how the soil works. There's a ton there, and we're still discovering more.
How exciting.
Yeah.
And how did that bring you back to 01028?
Let's see. So I started to raise a family out in eastern Massachusetts, and after we had our children, I was really wanting to be closer to my family, who were still out here in Springfield, and they're now in Southampton. And so after just several years of looking, living out there, looking, we finally had the right time to come back to this area, and we looked at a few different towns, but East Longmeadow, I had that history, and it just felt like it just felt like the right fit for us. So we bought a house in town. That was about 13 years ago now. And we've been happily, putting our kids through school here and raising them. And within a year of moving back here, the for sale sign was up at, lo and behold, BJ Staples on Porter Road.
Life is a circle.
It
right?
was. I ran home. I said, Keith, my husband, I said, BJ Staples is for sale.
Were you looking for land, or was this a surprise for him?
I had already started partnering with Pomeroy's Vegetable Farm, another small organic, operation here in town. And we had already started sort of a CSA and a partnership, but I was always on the hunt I always wanted my own piece. So when that showed up, it kind of feels like it. Yeah, it does.
Excellent. So 13 years ago, you took the leap.
That's right.
And how do you start? Where do you start? You have a house, you have children.
Right.
You have a very supportive, nice husband. And now you have how much land?
The farm is just under 5 acres, that piece of land.
That's significant.
It is. It's really a sweet little oasis. I've always thought that since it became my little oasis in my teen years, but it's right on the edge of Springfield, but it's backed by 100 acres of town conservation land. It has this beautiful nook feel to it. And it was totally overgrown, and it didn't look anything like it had as a horse farm. All the horses had long since gone, so there was no grazing anymore, and all the trees were coming back. Actually, it was really overgrown with, pines and shrubs and things. So I'd say, because I'm raising the kids and all my kids are young and school age, that everything was just very slow. It's been a slow, 10-year process.
We say thoughtful.
Thoughtful,
mindful.
Yes. That's right. But when you look back on it, you realize how far it's come, like every step. And I don't have big equipment. I've never loved big tractors and things. My husband does, thank goodness. So he can do some of that work. But so the first step was just bringing in someone with a big, big tractor and doing that old fashioned plowing where you flip furrows and flip the sod over and start to break that all down into workable soil again. And I was actually cringing when it happened because it looked so beautiful and natural and untouched. I almost didn't want to disturb it. But agriculture is disturbance. So it's all about the right kind of disturbance and thoughtful disturbance, as you said. And it's gone from there.
So where do you start? You've plowed the land.
Right.
What crops did you start with?
We started with potatoes, which is a great crop to start with when you have sod, I've learned. And we started with just the front, right behind the barn. We just started with a small, I don't know, it was probably like 400 feet by 50 feet. I was still working with Pomeroy's, and so we were saying, okay, let's grow some things over here. Let's see what grows well over here. And after the plow comes in and flips it, then you have to bring in this other big thing called discs, or a big gang of discs on the same big tractor, and you break up all those plow pans, and you start to really let the soil break down. And we discovered that the soil was this beautiful, rich. It's very clay. It's like a heavy clay soil, but it's so that has its own troubles and its own nuances, but it's very fertile and it holds water well. And if you treat it right, it's a really nice soil. So
it started with the humble potato.
that's right.
That is great. And I'm guessing in the beginning, you didn't have this whole distribution network you have now.
Right. Well,
did you put up a farm stand and?
Yeah. So we continued for a few years to do a partnership CSA through Pomeroy's, and that worked well. And then after a few years, I decided I kind of wanted to. My mom became a partner with me, and I decided that I wanted to sort of just do my own venture with my mom. So my mom, who was a nurse at Mercy Hospital,
another one who has sort of shifted her career.
Right, her second career. Yep. She's been working with me. So after 35 or so years as a nurse at Mercy, she retired and became a farmer in her second life. So for 10 years, she's been running circles around me, actually. She's a tough, hard worker.
Well, I am in awe of your ability to engage your family in your work. But we need one point of clarification. You've mentioned CSA a couple of times, and there may be those outside of the farming community who don't know what that is. And it's fascinating, and it's very timely now because the growing season is starting. So can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah.
And why people would like to know about this?
Sure. So CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's a phrase that was coined on a farm in the Berkshires, actually, I think back in the 70s, maybe early 80s, on a farm out there, Indian Line Farm, I believe. And so it's where the concept started, but it was this sort of a different way of looking at agriculture as agriculture was shifting, and there was sort of this back to the land movement and this new forming interest with the general public in organic and in knowing where your food comes from. So the stars kind of aligned for the CSA movement, and it's been growing ever since, where the whole concept is that instead of a farmer spending all the money, growing what they think people will buy, and then trying to sell at grocery stores, farmers markets, farm stand, you find people who want to be a little more invested in their food, and they literally make an upfront investment. They pay for their farm share, and they, in return, they become members of the farm for that season, and they come once a week, and they basically share everything that the farm grows. And the way I like to think of it is people are investing in the farm, and in return, you want to give them a return on their investment. You want to give them more than they paid for. So
it's payment. I wouldn't have to go and weed or anything.
I do have work
weeders.
shares.
Okay.
I do have people who like to do that too. And I have a great crew of women who are my longtime work shares, and they work with me for the whole season in exchange for their share. But most people are paying customers. But instead of, it's a little bit of an adventure because they come starting in June and going all the way through basically the early November. They show up at the farm once a week, and everything we've grown that week is laid out, and we've divided it up, and they come and they pick up they weigh out their own portion of things and pick out the things they want.
So it's a bit of a buffet, so to speak.
It's a bit of a buffet.
Or an array of different produce.
That's right.
So what's the first wave of what might a farm share comprise in the first
few weeks? Yeah. So
it's early.
Yeah, even June is still early, and the things that are ready in June are the things we're growing right now, which are the cool weather crops. So by the second week of June, you're probably getting a really nice array of greens, like salad greens. You're probably getting early peas, and you're getting the early herbs. And we try to do a little bit of, if we can't, the radishes are ready. and maybe even the strawberries by the second week of June are ready to pick.
I should have had a larger breakfast. This isn't good. Okay. How cool. And I noticed, because I was able to see some pictures, it looks like a brown grocery bag full of healthy, fresh, delicious food.
That's right. Yeah, we have to kind of let people know ahead of time, okay, if you're going to buy a large share or a medium share, this is what you can expect. So luckily over the past 10, 12 years, I've kind of come to know, okay, this is pretty much what we will have at this time of year. And what you can expect is in the spring, it starts smaller. By the time, mid-July, August, September come, you're bringing home like a lot. Some people, bringing home 20 pounds of tomatoes sometimes. You have to be ready to can and freeze and put up things.
Wait, you can tailor your needs. Oops.
I was talking about the shares. There's also shares that are put together for the seniors.
That's
here at
right.
the senior center. So that might be something you could talk about, because there's an opportunity for somebody now to sign up for a share.
That's right. Yes. So yes, a few years ago, I learned about this program. It was called a pilot summer farm share program, so that people could use their HIP benefit, which is through the SNAP program. It's called the Healthy Incentives Program. And it's great because it's a completely reimbursed benefit. So if you use it for fresh veggies at a farm stand, at a CSA, I think even at the grocery, you can be fully reimbursed for those. So we started this sort of it's a 10-week farm share program with the senior center, in partnership with them. And it's kind of nice because it's at that peak season. It's July to September when tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, all the goodies are really in. And the same thing, people sign up ahead of time and we pre-pack their shares and we bring them here, and people can, pick up in a small window on a Wednesday afternoon and take it all home. So.
And you said something that's so important, and this is specifically part of what in the old days we called food stamps. But if you buy a farm share, it is taken out of your food stamps, but then reimbursed.
That's right.
So it's literally free.
That's right.
It's an incentive to eat healthier.
That's exactly.
For folks, and so helpful for seniors and those on a fixed income who have to make every dollar count.
That's right. Yeah.
And you get great produce from Crow River Farm.
You got
right?
it. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, it's a big operation. You have your house, you have your husband, you have your kids, but you've now established, a surveyor, a site manager, living at the farm, kind of keeping an eye on the chickens. And
my
things.
gosh, yes.
So tell me how that came about.
My father-in-law, Ed Fitzgerald, who's here with us. Yes.
That's me.
And very busy with this podcast program, which is wonderful. Came how many years ago, Ed?
At least 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, it feels longer than that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And as soon as Ed stepped foot on the property, and Ed now lives in the farmhouse and, tends to the farmhouse for us, but we put him to work.
Chickens.
Yeah.
Were
yes.
You, a rural growing kind of guy, or I know you're a tech guy. But.
Yeah, a tech guy, and I worked in Manhattan for many, many years. I'm New York City.
Oh, yeah, Crow River Farm's a little different, I bet.
But when I decided I wanted chickens, this was during COVID. Actually, I decided. Some people were going crazy buying toilet paper. I decided I needed to buy chickens. So we went through the whole process, got the chicks, raised them at the house, which was interesting for a little while. And as soon as we brought them over, I said, "Oh, and by the way, Ed, would you mind letting them out and putting them in every single day for the rest of their lives?" And Ed took that on. In fact, Ed, you've been asking for goats, so.
Yeah, I have, I guess.
On purpose?
It makes things interesting. I mean, it's
so.
I've gotten a routine now with the chickens. I
You've
remember
come a long way from the Big Apple, my friend.
I remember the first time that I had to put them in the coop. I thought it was natural that they'd want to go in the coop.
Oh, yeah.
but I was chasing them.
Oh
I mean,
my
it was-
gosh,
Oh,
I get
it was
these
crazy.
stories.
Don't you wish
but-
we had
but it is-
video of it?
But they are good. They go in. It starts to get dark. I go out there. I close up the coop in the morning. I'm out there, open the coop, and it's nice.
And knocking ice off of their water
that's-
and
yeah,
changing their
then it's not so
food.
bad.
And
And
Yeah.
who collects the eggs?
Ed collects
Ed
the
collects
eggs.
the eggs.
Oh,
Like
yes.
eggs. Yeah, and the sharers, you get that's part of the share, or
Yes,
In
well,
addition,
we
it's
pulled
a-
back. Yeah,
Yeah,
we pulled
okay.
back on that because I realized vegetables were enough. So I was going to venture into selling eggs, and I realized, I think we'll just keep them for
These
ourselves.
are family pets and
Yes.
friends and family, shall we say.
Yes, they are.
Not the same distribution. So you do not do a farm stand per se, or
No,
you do? Can
I-
we drive up to Crow River Farm and
Not
get
yet.
some kale?
So this
People that love
year,
it?
I really hope to have a little farm stand for the very first time. It's always been a smaller operation, so with not a lot of staffing. So the idea of a farm stand has always been in my mind, and I'd love to invite more of the public onto the farm. And I wanted to start with like a small little tomato stand. So when we have like the surplus, to be able to let neighbors come over and buy a few things.
sounds like
Yeah.
I have a new job.
Yeah, there you go. We do plan this year for the first time to open our flower garden to the public for pick your own. So we have like this little front garden, and me and my mother, we always overplant a zillion annuals. We love it's this chaotic garden, and that it's like my favorite part of the farm, but it's often overlooked. We grow a ton of different varieties, and the sharers love it. So when they pick up their share, they get to venture over and pick bouquets. And some people just love to have that
Yeah,
every
it's a-
week. And
It's amazing.
the kids.
I've never had the appreciation for flowers that I do now.
Yeah.
I mean, some things that I've never seen, some that I've take pictures of, and I do a lot of photography there on the farm. And I have a whole new appreciation for what goes into producing the food that we eat. I mean, it's the work. It is hard work. I mean, I see Kerisa and her mom out there. Doesn't make any difference what the weather is, and they are out there working the land. And another thing too is that you do get used to having eating vegetables that don't look all shiny and clean the way that they do in the supermarket. Everything gets washed off. You do that for the sharers, but I'll go out there to grab something and just pull it off the vine. And if it's got a bad spot on it, just cut it out.
that off,
right?
and
You're foraging. That's great.
yes.
Or,
That's right.
and I guess it's called gleaning after the harvest,
You
right?
got it.
I'm trying to get the words in.
That is.
This is good. Excellent. So tell us the best part about, shall we say, living your dream here.
My favorite part of farming is that I have become a perpetual student of nature. And I grew up I grew up going to Cathedral High School and going through my school years and not living in a rural place and not doing a lot of hands-on things. My mom was a very handy person and skilled with her hands, sewing, gardening outside and, in our little yard. I was more cerebral, and which was fine. And I was learning to write, and I was thinking I was going to be a fiction writer. But when I became a farmer, everything had to slow way, way down in my brain. And I realized that this is actually how people have gained knowledge over the eons, by just doing something with nature over and over again and making small observations and making small changes. I realized that you think that the science is all on the internet or in a book, but you actually are part of it when you're farming, because you are watching that you make tweaks and you watch things change, and you have actual real knowledge there that you can apply and keep playing with. It's like playing all the time. It's really wonderful.
There's a Japanese principle, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but it's called Kaizen, which is every time you do something, you do it a little better.
Yes.
And it sounds as if that is your philosophy.
That sounds very applicable. Yes.
Now, I know you're a creative writing person,
Yeah.
and I know you've done mentorship to learn about this, but you're also sounding pretty entrepreneurial. Is that a streak that you also possess as you look at your operation?
I think so. Maybe it's just a stubbornness that I share with my father or something where I do. Yeah, I think I've always wanted to go my own way, create something, had my own ideas about it. And even if it is a small operation and it's going to stay small, it's just very pleasing to be able to think of it from the top down. Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
You say you have a small operation, but you're the CEO of this farm.
Yeah.
And you make the decisions and guide what happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I enjoy that part.
So you've got your father-in-law, you've got your mother.
Yes.
The kids, do they get to go to the farm too?
Begrudgingly, yes. They
well,
go to the
it's
farm.
like anything else. Yeah.
I had this vision when they were younger, that we were going to all be on the farm barefoot together and they'd be,
Little House on the Prairie or
right.
something. Yeah, no, huh?
Not at all. I've come to accept that, but I still appreciate that I've made it part of their. Every year they are on the farm. Some, whether they are grumping at me the entire time or not, it's going to be something that I want them to have an experience with. I think the hard work, just something other than school and sports and video games and anything else they're thinking about.
And they will appreciate it later.
I think they will. I do. I believe that. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they will.
Yeah.
And Ed, you've had like a ringside seat watching this operation grow and being part of it.
Oh, I have. Yeah. I mean, it feels good. It feels good being on the farm. It's just a nice, sometimes I'll just go out and walk around the property just to take a break. And it is nice that it is in a community. Only a mile outside of town, from outside, from the Rotary out to the farm. Mm-hmm. So, so I've enjoyed it, plus it's good for me to get out, get some exercise. Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I wanted to ask you about when you talked about the writing, I know you're doing some writing or starting to get into that a little bit more.
Yes, a little bit more. Yeah. I have notebooks full of scrawled notes. I wrote a screenplay when I finished college, went out to LA for a little while, thought I was going to be a screenwriter and do Hollywood things. And then I decided to come back. So that was a short-lived thing. But I have been writing notes for a novel for a long time, filling notebooks. And I'm going to, I've been getting a little more involved with someone else who's a local writer, Linda Cardillo. She's actually one of my work shares. And she actually really inspired me to sort of get myself organized and try to start to discipline my writing a little more. So I'm going to be taking a little writing course with her and pushing in my off season. Like usually when the farm ends, I spend the month of November, this past November, writing and hoping over the next few years to have a manuscript and try to publish something. We will see.
Oh, the next in the
see.
future in an author's fair here. It'll be wonderful to have the Kerisa Fitzgerald.
Well, that's I just participated in the art and authors fair here. Excuse me. And one of the things I've always done is taking photos. Well, on the farm, I've done a lot more of that and have gotten into it more seriously because there's so many interesting things. The plants themselves, the vegetables, just the whole environment. And for the first time, I printed my photos and displayed them.
And they were
it's
beautiful.
Opened up. Thank you.
Absolutely
Thank you.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I've had a great week. We're kind of building up to this podcast today.
Nice. Oh, and did you sell any of the chicken pictures? Because I did.
Oh, I
love it. Those were the best.
That was the first thing I sold.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, the chickens. It was the chickens. I opened up the coop. The chickens were about to come out, and they saw it was snowing. They do not like the snow. They don't.
They have
looked around, and then they walk back in. So
That's awesome.
His job isn't to shovel for them.
He does.
I do.
He
I
does.
do.
Yes.
I do.
And he
I
watches
shovel a path for them. Yes.
I
Oh,
think they're bonded.
Oh, they are bonded. Ed he'll text me and let me know, I think I saw some tracks there might be a predator around, there looks like there's a little break in the, in the roofing. We have to fix that. So
It's like another world.
It is.
Yes, it is. And that's why I'm really excited to do Pick Your Own Flowers for the public this year, because I think I would just love more people to be able to have that experience of stepping onto a more rural property. It's
right
just
in our town.
Right. And it's so close to the city and all the busy neighborhoods, and it can be very it can make you feel more peaceful. It can make you feel more connected. So I'm hoping to be able to expand the outreach of the farm starting this year.
And the only animals you really have are chickens right now.
Yes.
The goat option emerges. But,
Since the farm is mini, we'd have to have mini goat, dwarf Nigerian.
To scale.
Right, to scale.
Nice.
Maybe a mini donkey someday. That's...
I wasn't aware of that.
This is one of those job descriptions. The last line is "and other duties."
Yeah, right.
As assigned.
Yes.
Excellent. So, Kerisa, what would you like to say to our listeners about maybe they're thinking about simplifying their lives? I don't think you have. Getting more back to nature, or just maybe wanting to eat healthy, fresh, local vegetables.
Oh.
What's your message to us?
Okay. I could go on for a long time with that, but I'll try to keep it shorter. I would say that I think Western Massachusetts is just like one of the best places. And we have some beautiful soils and people, beautiful places that are open space. But to connect to nature, it's all close to us, right? And I encourage everyone to take a shovel, right? And make a small little garden in their yard and just start to play with the soil. That's what I would love to see everyone doing, is put a little pollinator garden, right? 3 foot by 3 foot in every yard for the kids to check out, for the adults to tend and play with, and put in your favorite flowers or a vegetable. And because that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to tend the ground and connect with nature. And it's a great place to do it. So.
Wow. Ed, what have we forgotten?
I don't think there's anything that
Excellent.
I think we've heard an awful lot of good stuff.
What a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Kerisa.
Mary. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
This was a pleasure.
So that wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. We'd like to thank our guest, Kerisa Fitzgerald. The Stories from the View podcast is available on LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube. If you have a story you'd like to share, contact Pleasant View Senior Center Director Erin Kobler by stopping by the center or calling 413-525-5436, extension 1401, or sending an email to erin.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time at Stories from the View.